Hey guys, it's late at night. It's around 10 o'clock. So normally I don't give 10 o'clock updates, but just want to share a few things that have been running through my mind, some things that I've been praying for, and things that I think just need to be talked about a little bit. One of the things I want to talk about tonight is the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think it's an important subject to talk about, especially as Christians. But Christians, we don't always do a really good job at addressing mental health issues. As Christians, sometimes we compartmentalize mental health issues, and we act like somebody is struggling with anxiety or grief or depression or, fill in the blank. We automatically chalk that up as a spiritual issue. We say that, what if a person read their Bible more, if they prayed more, if they did this, that, or the other thing, their depression would go away, or their anxiety would go away. And we treat it as if all we have to do is just read more and do more and do more and do more. And I can understand like part of that grasp, that thought. But in my almost 20 years of pastoral experience, like ministry experience, I could say that some of the people that have struggled with mental health the most have been some of the most incredibly sweet and faithful people. They were reading their scripture, they were praying, but they just had an issue that they struggled with, that they were wrestling with. And the church does not always do a really good job with that. As a matter of fact, sometimes I think we are a detriment. Sometimes we hurt people that are going through like a mental health issue. And the way I would liken it this way is if somebody were to come in my office as a pastor and they were to have something like diabetes or another illness, I would encourage them, hey, you know what, seek medical treatment, take insulin, take a pill, if you've got high cholesterol, you got blood pressure, whatever it is. You as a pastor would encourage that person when that part of their body is sick to say, hey, let's address this, let's do this, let's fix this issue. But all of a sudden, when somebody comes in to our office as a pastor or a Christian, and they start talking about mental health issues, we don't often recommend medication or therapy or counseling. We typically recommend, be like, hey, you know what, your faith is weak. You need to bolster that. And don't get me wrong, every one of us could have a stronger faith. We need that. Like, it needs to be a part of who we are. But at the same time, a person that struggles with anxiety or depression doesn't automatically equal, hey, you know what, your faith is weak and there's something wrong with you. I think about some of the most faithful believers across the course of time. A man like Charles Spurgeon, the Prince of Preachers, priest of the Metropolitan Tabernacle, he went through bouts of depression where he was out of the pulpit for months at a time. And no one would look at that man and say he lacked faith. Or a hymn writer, William Cowper, who was one of the most phenomenal hymn writers of our era. He was friends with John Newton. He wrestled with depression, and yet he still wrote some of the most glorious hymns of the time. And those were not spiritual issues. Mental health issues does not always equal spiritual problem. We as the church need to normalize telling people that it's okay to go talk with the doctor. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay to be with a counselor. It's okay to acknowledge the fact that I have something going on in my life that needs to be addressed. It's something that needs to be talked about. And I think there's times where we as a pastor or people in ministry need to realize that some of the situations that we deal with are a little bit beyond our training or our skill set. And we need to be ready to turn people over to reputable, good counselors that are able to actually help that person walk through that valley. And for me personally, I've been through that. I've had the joy of seeing like good therapists and good counselors. And just the benefit that they've given to me is they walk me through mental health issue. They walk me through biblical things, biblical health of my life and understanding a little bit who I am and giving me the tools that I need. I think we as a church needs to normalize that. And we're not always supportive of people that are dealing with those issues. As a matter of fact, sometimes we ridicule them, sometimes we demean them, sometimes we belittle them. We don't offer them the tools that they rightly need. And mental health is a big deal. Like there's a lot of people in our churches that sit there and they have countless issues that they're dealing with quietly. And because we as the church don't normalize it or talk about it, that person relegates themselves to think they're alone. They feel like they're weaker. They feel like they're not able to be as strong of a Christian as what they like. And they look at everybody else and they see, oh man, they're happy and their lives are all together. When in all actuality, it's probably a large majority of the people that we sit in our church that are dealing with battles of self-worth and anxiety, depression, whatever it might be. But for my ministry, the hardest thing is working with men, because men, we are typically not super good at seeking out help for mental health issues. It's unique because men are just as prone for mental health issues as women. It's about 50-50 divide. But men are much less likely to seek counseling. Men are less likely to talk about it. Men are twice as likely to have substance abuse, meaning drug addiction abuse, alcohol addiction abuse, gambling issues, pornography issues. And those things only become exacerbated after a man loses his spouse. So a man already could be struggling with mental health issues. And then just imagine how losing his spouse just magnifies that. It's almost like watching, a black hole, suck in everything this man had that was good. Men typically internalize their issues. They don't like to converse about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't feel like don't want to acknowledge the fact that they're having a moment where they need a little bit of help. And it's because of that this is how do I even say this? It's a hard issue to even think about. Men are so if you look at the rate of people taking their lives, men take up 75 to 80% of suicide rate. That's 75 to 80% of people in America that take their life are men. And it's tragic because there's a huge gap there. And one of the reasons why is because men typically get messages like handle it yourself, or don't be weak, or I've had people say be powerful, don't be a problem. So what men do, we internalize it. We get silent, we get quiet, we get angry, and that anger sometimes could overflow into being violent or saying things that we shouldn't do. Men typically immerse themselves in work. Matter of fact, one of the things that I typically ask a man who has lost a spouse a few months earlier is, how many hours are you working? And that man typically just overwhelms himself with work. He doesn't take a rest. He doesn't break. Men are more likely to go through withdrawal, to isolate themselves, to not have a good community. And once again, substance abuse is a huge thing. Men, instead of acknowledging the reality that they're depressed, will say things like, I'm fine, or I'll just stay busy. And it's a detriment to a man, because the majority of the men I work with never know how to name their emotions. And the emotions that they typically know how to name is anger and stress, versus being able to name the emotions like sad or depression. They have a hard time distinguishing between grief and depression and anxiety. And a man has a hard time expressing those things. And he oftentimes, because of he being a man and feeling responsibility to be able to take up the mantle and seeking help, he tries to do it quickly, quietly, and out of sight, which does not help him out, which for a man who's lost a spouse, by the time he usually seeks therapy, he's already kind of in late stage grief, and his situation is compounded. It's the issue I would give you is, imagine not seeing a dentist for like 20 years, and then you go to the dentist and you obviously the damage is already done and you need to do dental work, and it's deep dental work and it's harder dental work. And because men typically don't seek out counseling and therapy, the damage goes deeper and it's harder to get to the core of those men. So they obviously deal with depression just as much as women do. They deal with social isolation. They use with alcohol misuse. They, especially after their spouse dies, it's within the first 6 to 12 months is such a high suicide rate for a man. And when his wife dies, he loses the emotional anchor of his life. He loses his best friend. He loses his daily structure. He loses his identity. He loses his purpose. And when I approach a man, I talk to him like, let's talk about therapy and counseling, because my ministry is one-on-one relationship, but it's not meant to be therapy or counseling. It's meant to walk alongside those things. But the things that almost every man says, and I know this because I say these same things sometimes, is I say, I should be past this by now. And other people might think that for you, because A few months ago, I had someone recently tell me, Matt, I thought you'd be better by now. Like there's not an expiration date on grief. That's not how that game works. It's not like you could trade it in and get rid of it. A man also will look at other people's situations and he'll say, you know what, other people have it worse than me, and I'm okay. That man uses the word okay. Okay for a man when he says that usually is not okay. Or some of the men would say talking won't change anything. And the one that I hear a lot of the men say, and this is real common for us, is I don't want to be a burden. I have said that. I do say that, and I will probably say that again in the future. So what men really need, they need to engage. They need community. We all need community, but men especially need that community. They need to normalize the fact that they have the ability to talk about hard emotions. They need to have an open space to be with people and say, not like a judgment-free zone to tell other people, you know, I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling down today, or I feel unsteady today, or I'm struggling today, and then normalize that to make that totally normal. In a month that is built for mental health awareness, I don't think that's just designed for like the secular world. I think that's even designed for us as Christians to understand that there's going to be people that's going to be gray days and there's going to be hard days for them. And instead of minimalizing that and ridiculing that and basically saying, you know, walk it off, because that's the man mentality, we instead need to give a man an open space and let him be able to express what he's going through, the fear and the doubt and the discouragement and the depression, giving him a place where it's safe and where he feels like he can engage. And one of the things I love about my Sons of the Shepherd ministry is a large majority of the men, they don't want to converse in the beginning. They don't. They're afraid. They're scared. You could see the look in their eyes. It's almost like a deer in the headlight look. But then, as you build community and relationship with them, it's like watching, you know, the geode, like the rock, and you watch it crack, and there's something really beautiful on the inside. The work to get to the inner part of that man is difficult. It's painstaking at times. You have to be methodical. But to see that man open up and say the phrases like, I feel depressed, or I feel anxiety. And then as we begin to talk about those things, we can begin to point to the hope and the healing that comes through Christ, and help him get connected with good therapy, and help him get connected with good counseling, and letting him know that he is loved and he's cared for, and he doesn't have to feel alone. He doesn't have to go through life's journey bearing heavy things without feeling he has assistance or help. It reminds me of the verse, and this is the verse I typically share with men, is do not fear, for I'm with you. I'll strengthen you and I'll help you. It's Isaiah 41:10. I encourage the men with that verse. But it's more than just that. I think of the verse in Ecclesiastes where it talks about two is better than one. And a man needs to have somebody walk with him through that valley. He needs to have the ability to share that in an open setting. So I want to just make you all aware that if you're going through moments where you feel insecure about your mental health, or you're wrestling back and forth, just because you see a therapist or you take a medication or you have a counselor, that doesn't make you any less of a Christian. That doesn't make you any less spiritual. It doesn't make you a second-hand citizen, second-class citizen of heaven. It doesn't do that at all. And we as the church need to let people know that it's okay, and we'll walk with you through those things. If you're a man walking through grief or loss, maybe not even the loss of a spouse, maybe it's a loss of identity, loss of purpose, loss of a dream. Some of you are walking through some deep valleys right now. I really do encourage you, just focus on your mental health and talk with somebody. Know that you have a friend. It's like the song that's in Toy Story, You've Got a Friend in Me. I'd encourage you as a man, if you don't have a friend, please consider letting me walk with you. We live in a barren wasteland of men that don't seek help, and because we don't, we are wore thin. And we have less and less patience and less grace. And my prayer for you as a man, that you would do the strongest thing in the world, that you would admit your weakness, that you would admit that you need help, and that you would step into a new day of knowing that just because you're going through this doesn't make you any less than a man. Just because you're crying, you've lost your spouse, you're confused, you're anxious, doesn't mean all of a sudden that you're less of a man when you wake up with those things. You're still just as much of a man. But probably one of the manliest things you could do, the most biblically honoring thing in your masculinity, is that you would come to the Lord and come and have somebody else walk with you. Hopefully you guys are encouraged by that and challenged by it. If you need anything, please talk with me. I'd love to walk with you and pray with you. And if you're having a moment where you're questioning the value of your life, I want to know you know the Lord loves you. I love you. And it's okay. It's okay to seek mental health help right now. Like even this hour, it's okay to do that. It doesn't make you lesser of a believer. It does not do that at all. Thank you guys for loving on Sons of the Shepherd ministry. I'm grateful that I get to walk with men through the valley, that I get to sit with them in the valley of the shadow of darkness, valley of the shadow of death, the valley of the shadow of doubt and discouragement and depression. It's not a ministry where like the limelight's on it and all the feel goods are there. You sit with men that have heavy baggage and don't feel like they have a lot to offer anymore. And it's in that place where the Lord meets them. And it's that place where if you want to know the address of Sons of the Shepherd's ministry, if you want to know where I do most of the work, it's not China or Pennsylvania or Taiwan. The ministry that I do is the valley of the shadow of death. That's where I exist, and that's where I love to meet those men. Because it's in that place where wandering men who are wrecked mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, it's that place where their hurting can be used to point to hope and healing that comes through Jesus and through friendship and relationship and having other people walk with them. Thank you guys for just loving on my family. Thank you for being good to me. Thank you for just listening to the ranting of this simple country boy here in Pennsylvania. I love you guys, and thanks for just being such a blessing. God bless you guys. Hope you get a good night. Bye now.